another exciting edition of the Veronica Harris Show. How are you today?
Doing good, doing well.
What are you today? Usually you know, every episode you would have a different job. What are you today? Stop wiggling.
I'm a doctor in training.
You are,
yeah. So we have a doctor. And we have an actual doctor on the show today that we're going to invite. We're going to introduce to our guest, our fans.
Gregory, you know, sometimes I don't appreciate what you said. Sometimes. But it's all good. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Gregory, tell us about our next guest.
So we want to bring today Dr. Valerie Simpson. She's an author, a doctor, and served as a chaplain for the Detroit Police Department and hospitals in the Detroit area. Now, I don't know a lot about what she does, so I'm gonna let her tell us all about what she does and how did she get into that line of work. Ms. Dr. Valerie Simpson, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are both of you?
We're doing well. We're cousins.
We are cousins. Yes, we are blood cousins.
Well,
and wonderful. But I wanted to say that, and thanks for asking about chaplaincy. I wanted to say that a lot of people think that chaplaincy is simply someone that walks from room to room at a hospital or, you know, with the military when there's a casualty. They think of that. But actually, a chaplain is someone that has to have a clinical understanding of grief and distress. And it comes through, your learning comes through examining yourself and examining your own grief and facing it. So it's very rewarding.
Help with people deal, because you said chaplain, not just with the Detroit Police Department, but you also deal with people who are in hospice or in various hospital settings. So you help people deal with sometimes end of life, and also when life has already ended and they have to deal with that grief. Is that somewhat in a nutshell what it is you have to deal with?
Absolutely, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So there was a period of time that I was a hospital chaplain in the Detroit Medical Center. And I would meet people. Sometimes I'd meet them in the emergency room, or maybe I'd just meet them doing rounds from room to room. And they would be there for whatever the illness was. And a lot of it progressed. So I would watch their disease progress, and they would be in and out of the hospital, what they referred to as frequent flyers, because they were there so much. And then so it would go from getting the diagnosis all the way to the the final stages of the illness and the hospital. Sometimes it would result in death. But then also there was the period of time that I worked as a hospice chaplain, and those were patients that were not expected to live beyond 6 months. Some lived years. So they were already in the throes of the struggle that they were at the end of life and having to realize the changes that were going to happen in their family, and then struggle with the end of life themselves. So there's a lot of pain, a lot of undealt with and unfamiliar territory there, because life has been life, but now you're at the end and you have a period of time. So there's a lot of psychology and pain in there.
So what I'm also hearing is that, and it also kind of goes with what we as society are dealing with right now. When someone does pass on, when someone dies, that's a form of change. And dealing with grief, there's various stages and there's various changes that someone will have to go through in order, I guess you could say, to get to the other side of having to deal with that. And you provide, help with that, helping the person deal with that change. I always say the one thing that's constant in life is change. However, we tend to, when we see change coming, we like, oh no, change.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, change. And not only through your work as a chaplain, but I know you've also written a book called Breathe, and it's a guide to coping mechanisms and strategies. With this book, and I didn't read all of them, be honest, but I did notice that you talk about, these changes and what things people can do, but particularly by breathing, like just take a breath, how you can deal with that change.
And Veronica, before we talk about some of those strategies and things like that, I want to, learn a little more about you, Valerie. Now, someone to do this job,
Yeah.
the heart you must have, the spirit you must have to go around these people that have these problems or at this stage in their life when they're dealing with so much pain. Do you kind of absorb that pain? How do you deal with that? Because Veronica, could you do that, Veronica? I don't got you doing something like that. The heart you must have, not that you're heartless or anything like that, or you don't have an angelic spirit, but I imagine you're just an angel, Valerie.
You know what? Thank you for that. Thank you for that. But here's the thing with, here's the thing. I have always cared about people. That's number one. I remember when we were living in New York and we were about to take a trip. We lived in the projects and they did all kinds of programs for the children. So we were about to take a bus trip to New York and a lot of people were boarding the bus. And I'm there, one of the students, I was about 7 years old, helping people on the bus. So I've always been that kind of a person. If somebody was getting beat up at school, I would stop the fight and walk them home so there wouldn't be any further fighting. It's just the compassion that I've had all my life for people. So when I when I was talked to, my sister-in-law told me about being a professional chaplain. I thought it was a volunteer position. But when she talked to me about it and I contacted them and they said, you have a good background when they started looking at it, but you're going to have to look at yourself. A lot of us don't do that. Most people aren't going to look at themselves in a lot of ways. And as a matter of fact, they will dismiss thoughts and they will distract themselves so they don't have to think about things that happened or their past. So as I began to examine myself, and everybody that's been through any length of life has gone through something. So I started examining things like my grandmother when she passed away and how close I was to her, and my father and my mother and how they were sick and, different things. Other people that had come into my life, things that happened to me that denied me of certain privileges or denied me of certain titles in life and just opportunities that I missed. There was a lot of grief. So I started looking at it and I realized that there's heaviness we walk around with that really prohibits us from being fully what we could be. Because there's a heaviness, there's a fear, there's a lack or an apprehension to move forward and to attempt certain things because we don't want to take a chance on being hurt or being put back in a position of pain. So becoming a chaplain, learning about me, was probably one of the most powerful things I've ever done. So that was the reason that I wanted to write the book. I began to talk to other people on the job, other employees, and I said, well, tell me why you think that way. She said, oh, no. And this was a person, well-educated, beautiful, had a lot going for her, but there were thoughts. It was like a Pandora's box. We're not opening it. It was just it was something that was not to be discussed. I also talked to someone that in a retreat, and I said, we're just going to write down the things that hurt us, and we're going to pray about them. We're going to tear the paper up so nobody knows. And one person was so inundated with pain and things that had happened, she said, I can't write it. I said, well, why? She said, I just can't. I said, well, just write the first letter of it. She said, no. So there's a lot of inward undealt with. There's a lot of grief that has been unresolved. And so when I started learning about me, I knew there were a lot of people out there that needed this. So I absolutely love the work of chaplaincy.
And that's my next question I was about to ask you. Like when you talk to people and when you have, I know some therapists like to say, when you try to make them do the work, the work of healing, do you find that a lot of people don't want to look at themselves? They don't want to self-reflect?
Yeah, that was part of it. That was a big part of it. Another part of it, they don't like some of the coping mechanisms. Like some people say, I'm not going to journal. I'm not going to write. And so they don't want to do it. So I had one person in a grief support group that did not want to journal. Everybody else did. And she said, I'm not going to do it. So one day she was on her job. She was there by herself. She was bored, so she picked up a paper and she began to write. She said, the more I wrote, I started crying. The more I cried, the better I felt. She said, so I went and I locked the door so I couldn't be interrupted. And she just wrote and cried and wrote and cried until she found out that there was so much of a release that she needed.
Operator 901, where's the emergency?
127 Brymere.
Okay, what's going on there?
I'd like to order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an emergency
Do you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
And you're unable to talk because...
Right.
Okay, is there someone in the room with you? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house?
No.
Can you stay on the phone with me?
No. See you soon. Thank you.
Welcome home, man.
Hey, Zachary.
Ready?
You looking good? Great hit.
The odds of a child becoming a professional athlete? 1 in 16,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 150. You know the odds of autism. Now learn the signs. Go to autismspeaks.org.
So I have one of my work shirt on today. It says cultural comfortable healing.
Oh.
And I serve as a community advocate working with kids with mental health disorders. And one of the main things that all of them have a rehabilitation plan, and we have to talk about, we have to help them with their coping mechanisms.
Ah, good.
So when I saw the book, I was like, wow, this is something that can be very useful.
What are the ages?
They're from 8 to 18.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they're diagnosed with mental health disorders, but that can be anywhere from ADHD to separation anxiety, from having to move a lot.
Yes.
Those sort of things. A lot of times we get referrals from the schools,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kids with any kind of behavioral problem.
Right.
They're kind of said that they can qualify, or with these mental health disorders that need treatment, and we're funded by Medicaid.
Oh,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, we bill Medicaid, and I work. So what I actually do is I facilitate a program called Leadership Through Sports, and I use sports and athletics to engage them and address some of the behaviors, dealing with anger and frustration, try to get them to communicate effectively when they're mad and that sort of thing. So yeah, when your mother told me we were doing a show and she gave me the book, I was like, oh wow, this is just what I need.
Yeah, because sports is very, it actually helps them to cope because of the endorphins that,
Mhm.
and then also helps them to work it out, especially if you're outside, the oxygen. Um, and then the energy, they can kind of exude the energy in their game as opposed to violence against one another or tantrums or whatever may come up. But that's a very delicate age because, they're not fully developed as far as making good decisions and they may act out of emotion. So that, my hat is tipped to you because that is a very challenging age group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very challenging. So praying for you, cuz. Praying for you.
Well, like for me, um, once and a lot of times I don't see the real bad behaviors because when they get with me, I'm more like an outlet. They get to go outside, run around, and the endorphins are coming on. So I don't see a lot of the bad behaviors.
It's
But
when they're in the classroom settings and
yeah,
closed in. Okay. Yeah, so some of these mechanisms may help. The talking, having a trusted support group, having the journaling, writing it out so you can think about it as you're writing it. You're giving an account, making sense of it, or really reviewing some parts of it that you didn't see that way while the emotions were really high during the event. Some of those things are so good. But the biggest part, I think, at that age group is just knowing that somebody really cares. And they know when they see you coming. If you're there for the paycheck, give them a few minutes. Don't know if you're there for the paycheck or if you're real, Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's the big part. God bless you for that. Because it's so needed.
It'll be my 3rd year in December.
Okay, you like it? Is it
Uh,
rewarding to you? Do you feel that you're helping and making difference in their lives?
a small one, yeah. A lot of times in my line of work, coaching or working with kids, I only hit them for like an hour a week or 2 hours, twice a week. So it's kind of hard to see it. I know it eventually it accumulates, you know, down the road, you really see it. And
Mm-hmm.
especially, a kid always come up to me. Like kids I worked with years ago still call me on the holidays and things like that. So that's when I know, the impact. But when I'm right in it, you don't see much of an
Well, you may
impact.
not, and they may not call you, but they'll look back and if they can remember how you made them feel, and if you were the source of relief, if you were the source of unloading grief or some type of comfort. In this case, going outside, stirring up the endorphins, interacting, being able to be down to earth, be themselves. They may even use a few foul words, but you know what? I understand you're mad. And sometimes, I get mad with them. That hurts. That's frustrating. I'm sorry you had to go through that. And those times they may not call you back, but they'll remember that. And they'll look back and they'll think about coach, and they will appreciate you. You may not always get the pat on the back or hear about it, but you're making a change in their lives. I hear about them. I have a deviant nephew, very deviant. But the one person that disciplined him and was always there for him is the one that he loves and respects. He can be in the throes of anger, but when that person appears, a calm comes over him. Yeah. So do what you do. They need you.
I'm telling Valerie about, my role as a community advocate and how the population I work with. And she was like, I'm an angel like her.
Yeah.
You're the only one without the passion. You're like a witch.
God.
We are not recording.
I mean, hey, everybody can't be an angel.
Yeah, the worst. I'm like, why? What? Okay, let's pick it up.
All right. She gets stuff
Typical
done.
little sister.
Yeah, okay. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so let me ask you a question. You talked about that as you when you first became a chaplain, some of the things that you had to do is you had to do that self-reflection. And when you were writing your book, when you wanted to talk to other people, you basically were asking them about their own self-reflection. Did you find that people found it hard to do that work, as they say, sometimes in the
Therapeutic world.
thank you, Larry. In the therapeutic world, they talk about doing the work. Did you find that they had a hard time with that?
You know what? I'm gonna kind of shift a little bit, because there was in one of my hospital visits, I never knew what I was going to get. So when I was paged or when I got a consult to go and visit, I never knew what I was going to get. So I did go into visit one particular patient, and just the fact that I was there and I asked her a few things about herself and her background, it was amazing to me when she began to open up and tell me. She just opened up and just started talking about a lot of things. I mean, she went all the way down to very secretive and intimate information, because I was there and because I was the chaplain and because she knew that confidence was there. But the next day when I went back to visit her, she was there, but someone was there with her, and she would not so much as give me eye contact. So it was something that she could talk about in private and needed to share and needed to unload. But when other people were around, it was not going to be a discussion.
So you find that we as individuals, we're able to let down that guard per se, when I guess it depends on who's in the room with us as far as how far we're willing to go.
Oh yeah, we're capable of, switching channels, kind of. You let me say it like that. We're capable of going from transparency to this is the end of the visit. We're capable. It just depends on how severe their situation is. And then some people are open enough to say, we're going to talk about this now because it needs to be talked about. And they would just respect the position, that I carried, that title. And so a lot of things came out. But it needed to come out, and it helped them.
It's almost kind of funny that how sometimes Gregory and I, we're health and PE teachers. Well, Gregory, you're a personal trainer. You deal a lot with nutrition and the human body, and you do as well. But sometimes we're always talking about you got to cleanse, you got to get it out. Especially with the gut health, you got to get it out. You got to get it all out. And sometimes those feelings could become toxic, and you got to get it out. You got to have that cleansing.
Yeah, you're actually talking about chapter number 4 of the book right now. It's called Detox.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the book because we're going to talk about the book. But like I said, we mentioned earlier that you wrote a book called Breathe, okay, A Guide to Coping Mechanisms and Strategies. And I guess one of the strategies would be the detox, but I want to focus for this show primarily on chapter 7, which is the tongue, death of a relationship. Now, when I read this, and I did peek into it, I delved into it, when I started reading this, it brought up a phrase that my mom says all the time. And if I get it wrong, Mommy, I'm sorry, but life and death is in the power of the tongue. Or in other words, whether you live or whether you die or how it happens, you can speak it into its existence. So be careful what you say. That's basically what she was trying to tell me, Veronica, be careful what you say. And in this particular chapter, you talk about how you had a long-standing relationship with someone, and the words that were said during an argument caused this relationship to die. Which brings to what Gregory and I talk about by dealing with young people. A lot of times young people say stuff. And they say, oh, I was just playing, or that's just how we talk to each other. And Gregory, what did you say about that?
They don't understand the gravity of their words.
The gravity of their words. And so I would like for you to speak about, this chapter a little bit and really what it means and what it could mean to young people as far as thinking about what it is I'm saying or how it is I'm communicating with someone.
Well, the story that you're referring to is a very, very close friend that we just clicked very good, and we were very similar. We appreciated each other. We were just excellent, our backgrounds and so forth. So we were trusting, we had the relationship lasted a long time, and we were very trusting with our secrets, our problems. And so we had shared a lot of things with each other because we felt that we were that good support system, that one confidant that you could open up to. And this was the way it went for years. And if something went bad, it was like you weep with those that weep and you rejoice with those that rejoice. We were even like that. I cannot tell you what happened to make us fall out. But something happened, something was said. And words have gravity. Just like a person can be gravely ill, your words can have grave consequences to them. We used to say that words can't hurt me, but words will destroy you. Words can stick with you. Words can puncture you and stick in you to the point where you don't have comfort and you can't relieve it. There's some pain and some words that you cannot medicate. I don't care what you do. You can't medicate it and you can't soothe it or ignore it because it has struck a nerve and hit so deeply. And this is what happened. So we had an explosion. And when we exploded, when whoever struck whoever's nerve, I opened up. I talked about her failed relationship. She talked about my treacherous marriage. And I talked about her background of, having this history. And she talked about my, very painful situations that I shared with her and nobody else. So we began, it was a virtual
like a gunfight,
lockdown drag out. We tore each other to ribbons. We were bloody, Emotionally, we were bloodied. And
it was like the words were like bullets. Like I was like letting off shots. Like when they say shots fired, y'all was like letting off shots at each other.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait a minute. We're having an argument, but you didn't bring that up. Okay, I trusted you with that information. I know that we're in the throes of an argument, but are you really going to scoff at me for that? That was almost destructive to me. So it was like the gloves were off. And so words are deadly. Words can be deadly. So we hurt each other. We destroyed each other's trust. We put pain there that we would have to cope with for years. And we took away the ability to trust other people for a long time. And even if you trusted, there were limitations on what you would say when you need a good support system. So it affected us in ways that would last for years and decades.
Okay, so this has now happened. Based on that experience, what can you tell? And I'm just going to say young people because that's primarily who Gregory and I work with. What can we tell from your story? What can we tell them? What can we say to them that'll help them not do what you did? So they're not bloody, they're not bruised, broken, and stuff like that from words.
Well, I would definitely suggest that you stop and take a moment to think. That is going to be the main thing. Take a moment before you let that out of your mouth. Even if as soon as they say it, sometimes you may gasp at what was said. Do that if you have to. Take a breath before you begin to say things and think, do I really want to be that nasty? Do I really want to be that mean? Do I really want to hurt them like that? Do I want to, put this relationship into coals of fire and sulfur? Because it was pretty much that way. Think about what you're about to say and the impact it's going to have on them. Are they already suffering because someone has hurt them or abused them? Are they already in a place where they're separated from the people they really love? But they have you, and are you going to also put yourself in the category of people that have hurt them and almost destroyed them? Stop and think. So the word breathe, it comes in at that point. That's where actual breathing exercises can help. So there's a box breathing mechanism that I put into that last chapter of the book where you just inhale for 5 seconds, and then you hold for 5 seconds. You release it slowly for 5 seconds and hold for 5 seconds. Now, it's even better if you do it outside because you're getting that fresh O2 versus the recycled air. The reason why it helps so much is because oxygen goes to the brain and it clears brain fog. And it goes through the bloodstream. It energizes the muscles. You literally begin to feel, the effects of that controlled breathing. It lowers the blood pressure. This is noted. It lowers the blood pressure. It slows the heart rate. So that is a mechanism you can use. Take a deep breath, hold it, release it, hold, and then take another one in.
Well, I am glad you brought that up. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to go breathe. I'm going to go breathe and take a breath, and we'll be right back with the Veronica Harris Show.
Sounds good.
I just did 2 cycles just then.
Okay.
5, hold, exhale.
Ready or not, here I come.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
How you doing? My name's Steve. My family's lived in this neighborhood for years. Recently, things got so tight, we had to go to our local food bank for help. I lost a lot of sleep worrying about what the neighbors might think. That is until I saw them there, too. How'd I do, Steve?
A little stiff. You could have done a little better.
What? Come on. I have an Academy Award.
Yeah, but not for playing me.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Mom, I'm not gonna go to college.
What are you saying? You've got to go to college.
Well, they offered me a job and...
Son, college is much more important.
No.
Yes.
No, Mom.
Yes.
Anyways, it's my decision.
Okay, well then decide what degree you're going to get because you will go to college.
Their tomorrow depends on your words today. The Hispanic Scholarship Fund has the information you need to help your kids go to college.
And welcome back to the Veronica Harris Show. We have Dr. Valerie Simpson here with us, and she's talking with us about how to deal with change. I would say change. And one of the coping mechanisms is we talk about breathing. And she wrote a book called Breath, which is a guide to coping mechanisms and strategies. Now, I'm about to get intelligent. I got my glasses on. In your book, page 124, you talk about the body innately attends to stress subconsciously. There are hormones and enzymes and glands in the body that are involuntarily released in response to stress around us. I bring that up because when we last left off, you talked about how breathing can help us.
Yeah.
The oxygen that goes to the brain, lowering the blood pressure, lowering the heart rate, all of that stuff is important. So that's why one of the reasons why you should breathe. But in your book, you're definitely talking about how the body can deal with stress and different hormones. I believe cortisol is one of the hormones that is released during stressful times and pharmacological about it. But we want to illustrate the point that while there may be times when you need to go and talk to somebody, you may even need to get medication for it. You really do have everything inside of you that you need to kind of help yourself move forward and heal yourself in a way.
And we are, wonderfully and fearfully made. We are created. It is phenomenal. I took some pre-medical science classes, pre-med science classes, and the body is incredible. Yeah. To the molecular, the atomic level. You can't even see it, and there's so many functions in every one of those atoms in the body. So yes, you are a walking pharmacy in a way, because your body is made to respond to reactions and to situations. There's the fight or flight, When you see something, are you going to stand there and see if this is something that's going to destroy you? Are you ready to face it? Or are you just going to avoid it and evade it? So there's that fight or flight. And then there is the cortisol that you mentioned is meant to help you when that stress level goes up. But if it is sustained, your stress level is sustained, if you sustain anger, resentment, unforgiveness, the cortisol level remains high. And the cortisol then begins to suppress the immune system. So now your body can't even fight off a cold, it cannot, and many things come up against your body all day long. You walk in the hospital, every germ is there. Some environments, and so your body is just designed to fight it off. But when you carry those kind of bitter feelings and unkind feelings and frustration, then you're carrying cortisol and it's working against your body. Now, there's also ways to protect yourself. So you take in things that are going to stimulate the good hormones, the feel-good hormones. Okay. So as opposed to just having to live. I mean, you take whatever medications because sometimes there's a chemical imbalance in the body. So, but what are you going to do every 5 minutes if you're frustrated, take another pill? You'll kill yourself. So there are things you need to learn to use that are in you that will teach you how to be more self-sufficient. And
what are those things? Because you have the final chapter talks about those coping mechanisms. Maybe you can just give us, our viewers, 2 things that they can do that would help them.
Okay, so we've already talked about breathing, right? All right, so then we're going to talk about music. I'm going to talk about music. I'm going to talk about fragrances, okay? So music, everybody loves music. Music addresses the human spirit. You may not even know that you're responding to music. You're in the store, but the music has got you lulled to a place where, I'm not in a hurry anymore, no big deal. So music addresses a gland in the brain called the amygdala. It's right in the middle of the brain. And so music addresses that gland, but words don't. Nothing you can say is going to do anything, but the music, the sound of the music, the melody, the chords, the tones, all of those things go in and begin to administer to the body. So the body then releases the amygdala sends neurotransmitters to your either to one of your organs to release possibly adrenaline or dopamine, or there's a number of them. I went over it recently, but it releases that, and you can feel it. You can feel the calming sensation. That is a chemical coming through your body. Music and fragrances. Fragrances are another mechanism that the body uses. It goes to the amygdala too. It only responds to the fragrances and some music. So
that's that. I'm sorry, when you talk about that fragrances, you're talking about that aromatherapy.
Aromatherapy, but there are specific fragrances like lavender. Okay, so lavender, you can just, I started experimenting with them. You can just put a little bit in your hands, and somebody's getting on your nerves. They don't even know what you're doing. You're trying to cope with it.
I like it. Like trying to cope.
And so those fragrances, or just have something calming in your room. The candles have soot in them, so that I really like the diffusers. So that fragrance is there, and it addresses you, and it calms you. You know why? It interrupts the anger. Have you ever been in a conversation? You say, "Ooh, what is that smell?" Somebody walks past you, they may have on a nice cologne. It's distracting. And so those fragrances do the same thing. So I love eucalyptus. So I may be in a bathroom combing my hair, but then I put fresh eucalyptus in my bathroom. Then all of a sudden I'll smell the eucalyptus, and it interrupts those other emotions. So those are 2 things. And then I'll just throw this one in for free. Your textures and sensations. So something soft, something furry, something fuzzy, something, that you can rub against your face or against your arm, or just maybe cover yourself in one of those fleece blankets. Those are things you can do. Simple things. It gets much deeper. It's much broader. I put a lot of it in the book. So a lot of the ways to deal with it are there.
Oh, wow. So that is awesome. Gregory, you look like you zoning out.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you have these mechanisms and skills, tactics you use to deal with the grief, the depression, and anxiety. I was wondering, do you have like a daily practice so your stress level doesn't get to a point where you need that mechanism? Now is maybe some kind of basic routine that allows you to stay in a comfortable place.
Great question. I put myself, before I start my day, I don't trust going through my day without knowing that everything is secured and that everything is going to be cared for above and beyond my ability to take care of it. So I start my day with prayer. Mm-hmm. I start my day talking and just loving, and sometimes just being there in his presence. I start my day with that. And he fills me up with the confidence that I'm responsible for you. I'm responsible. I've dealt with your situations prior to it even come. There are things that are going to come across your plate, and I've already resolved them. I have declared, she likes it. I've declared the end from the beginning, and I go before him, and I just, kind of like feel like a child, with my head on my, on my father's shoulder. I was daddy's girl. And, I love my mother, so I would like to be in presence and say things that made her smile. So I get those same feelings when I talk to him.
So moving past the prayer, because we are getting up against the time and I want to make sure everybody has to hear. So what other things do you do in that daily practice? So you have your prayer time, and then what? Then we move to what?
Okay, so then I have, now that I'm around the house now, COVID changed everybody's life. Unbelievably, to me, I did not expect this. The cleaning. Ooh. And get down in that corner, and is that dust free? Is there no, can they come and look and there's nothing around there? Now I get the fragrance. I get these cleaning products, without all the chemicals, and get some of that and just wash it. And then so the freshness is just in the air. So even cleaning, those kind of things. Even when I'm putting the dishes in the dishwasher. Okay, forks, spoons, knives. These work best over here. All those kind of things are the organization. Organization is peaceful. If I walk into a room, and it used to be this way, I had a terrible marriage, but I survived it, and I have a wonderful husband now. But it was just, if I went out of town and came back, every room. So walking into a clean, organized room gives me peace. Now that I'm around the house, I get to do it. So, and then seeing it like that and keeping it like that. And then I'm thinking, well, now I can polish it even more. Those things help me too. And then caring for yourself, skincare, good skincare, hair care, fragrances. All those nice, sweet things, taking care of you, making you feel, pampered and appreciated. And yeah.
Well, that's a good thing to wrap it up on, that self-care. No, it is very important to scrub them elbows, as we got to say, and maybe do that beard. But I totally relate to everything that you're saying. When my cleaning lady comes through and I walk in and I smell that lemon fresh, I'm just like, woo, Marisol's been here, all is right with the world. I love it. I love it. Well, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for, first time we got to meet, I'm like,
my cousins, all these years, I never got a chance to see you. Beautiful, both of you.
Once again, can I thank you enough for spending this time with us, talking to us about, the gravity of words and how you got to think and just breathe, and sharing that little coping mechanism with us. Gregory, anything you want to say before you leave? Because you look like your eyes is getting closed.
No, again, thank you for your time. Pleasure meeting you. down this way or we up that way, we definitely gonna connect.
Yes, let's connect again, cousins. Love you both.
All right.
Love you too.
Love you too. And as we like to say here at the Veronica Harris Show, deuces.